Hey, it's Zio Bookbinder, the host of Imagine Justice. I'm also the creator, editor, producer. I'm the only person currently involved in bringing you this podcast. I have a few updates to share. I'm taking a break from releasing new episodes while I look for more stories to share. If you'd like to help me find stories, or just help the podcast in general, here are a few ways to do that. The absolute best way to support is by sharing the podcast. This is an independent show. I don't have a marketing budget, so I'm counting on word of mouth to get these stories out there. Who do you know who would appreciate this content? Can you send them a message about it right now? If you have an idea for a story, please fill out the form on my website. Even if the story isn't yours, feel free to share a tip or a link to something you feel could make a good episode. Visit ziobookbinder.com/podcast. The link is also in the episode notes. Lastly, please follow the show, subscribe, whatever your app lets you do, and leave a rating and a review. Feel free to do so on multiple platforms. Apple Podcast is the most important one, then Spotify. I really wish I could avoid using both of those platforms and still have a successful podcast. I encourage you to listen on a different app like Pocket Casts. Reviews and ratings are helpful wherever you leave them. Thank you so much to the folks who have already done so. An exciting update regarding episode 2 with Rachel Cox. After hearing the podcast, the county attorney reached out to Rachel about bringing peacemaking into the courts. I immediately started crying when I got Rachel's text about this. This is what she hoped Zadi's legacy would be. It's happening. I'm eternally grateful for Rachel's vulnerability and Thomas Walker's knowledge and experience, which made this happen. I hope to have more news as this develops. I also wanted to share a bit about how I came to make this podcast. When I was in my mid-20s, I started volunteering teaching music inside a maximum security prison. This was in 2009, and the discourse on prisons, the court system, and policing were nowhere near mainstream. I hadn't thought much about prison before I entered one for the first time. That's because the community I grew up in and the community I existed in at the time was not impacted by policing and prisons, and that's because of privilege. Prison is a devastatingly dehumanizing place. I witnessed so much suffering that first day and in every subsequent visit. It was clear to me then that places like that should not exist. I wasn't sure what change looked like then. I got involved with different activist groups and learned a lot through organizing about alternatives to the system we currently use. I'm so grateful to the people who offered me their wisdom and knowledge along the way. One impactful experience was reading Our Prison's Obsolete by Angela Davis. In the book, she talks about non-punitive justice. That was my introduction to this concept, and it blew my mind. I was forever changed by the notion that people could come together after harm and witness each other's pain and heal and make agreements that actually benefit the harmed individuals rather than just continue a cycle of violence by sending people to prison. With this podcast, I'm not aiming to tell anyone what the answer is. I don't know what the answer is. I'm asking you, the listener, to imagine with me and with the people who share their stories. I don't personally think there is one prescription for all harm in this world. Every situation calls for a different response. I was honored to be able to speak with Jane Piper in episode 3, who went through a process with a surrogate perpetrator. In her case, this was all that was possible because the man that harmed her had no remorse. But I've heard of situations where a survivor of harm asks for a surrogate because facing their abuser is too triggering. There are processes where neither the harmed or the perpetrator are present in the room and each send representatives. I don't expect survivors to choose to face their abusers. And there are still ways to approach accountability without punishment as the goal. There are so many ways to do this, so many shapes that justice can take. We can decide what it looks like for us. Retribution is not the only answer, and perhaps is not even one of the answers. We know that punishment doesn't deter children from disobeying rules. Parenting has revolutionized, and corporal punishment, which used to be the norm, is no longer considered socially acceptable. The way we train animals has drastically changed over the years and has moved away from punishment. Adult humans also do not respond well to punishment. Most people who go to prison will go back again after their release. Violence can be an endless cycle unless we choose to end it. I love the example that Rachel in episode 2 gave of the boy who stole the school van. His life could have gone a totally different direction if his community had responded with punishment rather than peacemaking. That boy is a peacemaker now. He didn't go through the court system or go to prison. He repaired the van and returned it. He healed, the harm was addressed, and he's a community leader today. How many opportunities like this are missed when we default to using the criminal legal system? I have a friend who works as a restorative justice practitioner, which means that she mediates conversations like the ones in episodes 1 and 3. Years ago, she told me something that has stuck with me ever since. She said, "The criminal legal system asks 3 questions. What was the crime? Who committed it? And what is the punishment? Restorative justice asks, what happened? Who was harmed and how? What is needed to repair the harm?" You may have noticed that the second set of questions is focused on the survivor of the harm rather than on the rules that were broken. As Thomas Walker, the peacemaker from episode 2, explains, peacemaking goes further than restorative justice. His description reminded me of another framework called transformative justice. Transformative justice, also referred to as TJ, was developed by Black women and women of color as a response to restorative justice, or RJ. RJ focuses on an event, and as Thomas said, on restoring the conditions to what they were before the harm was done. TJ seeks to create better conditions. Why would we return to the conditions that allowed for harm to occur in the first place? Instead, we can seek to learn what needs to change to improve the conditions so that people have the support they need. From what I understand, peacemaking does the same, though not in exactly the same way. There are different traditions for addressing harm in Indigenous communities around the world. Both RJ and TJ have been informed by these traditions. I encourage anyone listening to go back to episode 2 and listen to Thomas Walker's explanation again, which is just before the 33-minute mark, and he speaks again at 54 minutes. He knows a lot more about this than I do. I'm here to share the stories and to challenge us all to imagine the possibilities. From what I've learned, our punitive systems are a symptom of individualism. When someone causes harm, we deal with it by tossing them out instead of seeing them as part of the fabric of our community. What's going on with them that led them to causing harm? Are their needs being met? And how about the people who were harmed? And how has this impacted the community as a whole? What can be done to repair the harm and to mitigate future harm? Not only does this punitive mindset result in more violence, it also results in harm being ignored, because the only association we have with responding to harm is punishment. When we decide the harm isn't bad enough or isn't a broken law, we often ignore it and ignore the needs of the people involved. What if we could reframe this to think of responding to harm as supportive, as care? Responding to harm doesn't have to be choosing a side. It's really keeping community whole. These holistic justice frameworks help me feel hopeful about the world and about our future. I've learned from activists like Mariame Kaba and Ruth Wilson Gilmore, and from books like Beyond Survival. You can find suggested reading in the episode notes. As a society, we have been so indoctrinated with the idea that we solve problems by policing and caging people that many cannot imagine anything other than prisons and police as solutions to violence and harm. That's a quote from Mariame Kaba. I am committed to imagining. Will you join me? Thank you for listening to Imagine Justice. I hope to be bringing you new episodes soon. In the meantime, please support this independent show by leaving a rating.